Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Nice, smooth music to ease us into the afternoon. Hey, y'all, how goes it? Hope everybody is doing well. It's been typical Oregon winter week, rainy, foggy. It can't figure out what it's going to do. I know some of y'all are in deep freeze country right now, even a few of you who aren't used to being in deep freeze country. Um, as a public service to all you folks down south, Yankees, your weather's in their yard. Come get that stuff and take it back up to Kroger country. Okay. All right. Just in case, some folks didn't get the memo. Well, welcome aboard. It's been, like I said, a week. I have been doing a bunch of modification to the CNC router. As I talked about last week, the Avid EX controllers came out, and I have the EX system now running. My CNC moves, I've got to do a little bit more tuning and calibrating, and then I'll be ready to go with it. I am going to do a few videos on it, but they're going to be kind of vague on purpose. And that's mainly because it is so machine specific. Um, I would be narrow casting to maybe 6 people. And I don't know that that would be much of a benefit to most of you. But I will be doing a little bit, maybe a little bit on the control software, because this is 100% completely new to me, and it's different from anything that I've used before. But before we get into all this other good stuff, I want to say hello to and give a shout out to my friend Steve. You see him down there in the comments. Steve at Harneal Media. He's my only moderator, by the way, and he does a good job with that as well. Picking up on little things that I miss as they scroll by and I'm looking at another screen. But as far as how that applies to you, if you're looking for somebody who is steady on the job and you're thinking about a website, maybe a web store to offer your products and services to the public at large, Steve can hook you up. He's the man with the plot, the man with the plan. He's incredibly reasonably priced. And for the level of service you get with Steve, I would argue it's hard to find better. And that's mainly because he gives you performance. He doesn't give you excuses. He offers 100% personalized service to everybody, regardless of what he does for you. When you're dealing with Harneal Media, you're dealing with Steve. You're not dealing with some nameless, faceless person in a call center somewhere that you're never going to have contact with again. So do yourself a favor. There's a link to Harneal Media in the description of every video and every live stream on this channel. And it's that way for a reason. Click on that link, click that contact us button, and shoot him a message. He will work with you as much or as little as you want him to do. He's on top of it. I'm proud to call him a friend, and I'm grateful that he is the sponsor of MarkLindsayCNC.com. Steve, thank you for everything that you do. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. Let's jump over here and talk a little bit about a question I saw on somebody else's live stream. There was a little bit of talk about, was there a way to explode vectors? And a few people were a little bit confused by what that actually meant. Exploding a vector is pretty much getting in and taking that vector apart at its nodes. So in a real simple illustration, we'll start with, I'm going to anchor a rectangle at my X0, Y0, going to do square corners, and yeah, I'll make it 3 by 3. And that puts a square right there. Now I'm going to go into node editing. And the way I'll do that is just select that vector and tap the letter N on my keyboard. Now, you can also do that over here on this second icon under Edit Objects, but I find it easier just to tap the letter N on my keyboard, and that'll send us into node editing mode. Now, before I get any deeper into this, let me say to beginners and anybody who uses 2D vectors, if you're designing with 2D vectors, node editing is an essential skill. There are going to be times when you need to get in and work with a closed vector or an open vector. You might want to smooth out a curve. You might want to add a curve. You might want to change a curve to a straight line. This is all done through node editing. Node editing is as essential as drawing. I've put links to 2 videos down in the description of this live stream that is geared to the beginner who's never done it before. And these are introductions to bitmap tracing and node editing. If you are going to do any bitmap tracing at all, you will need to know node editing. That's how you get a better result out of your bitmap tracing. So there are 2 videos linked down in the description, part 1 and part 2, that will walk you through it and get you started in node editing. But it is an essential skill that you're going to need to learn, develop, because it goes hand in hand with drawing. I'll get off of that soapbox now. When it comes to exploding vectors, basically what you're doing in this case, you're taking this rectangle and you're cutting this rectangle at all 4 of the nodes. So right now, let me come out of node editing by tapping the letter N again. Come out of node editing. So right now, this is a closed vector, but I can explode that into 4 separate straight lines. This is an option in Aspire and in VCarve Pro. This is not an option in VCarve Desktop. And that's because we're going to use a gadget. Go up here to the Gadgets menu. With the vector selected, we'll go up to the Gadgets menu, come right down here to Explode Vectors. I'll click on that, and I have several options here. For my vector options, I can replace the vector that's currently selected, or I cannot replace it. So I'll have 2 sets of vectors. I can put the new vectors on a new layer and name that layer right here. If you are going to keep this closed vector and not check that box, if you're not going to replace this current vector, put it on a new layer and name it whatever you would like. Otherwise, you are going to have a problem selecting a vector that's lying under this closed vector. All right. I'm not going to do that just for this demonstration. I'm going to go ahead and replace this vector with 4 separate vectors. Run the gadget and show the form. Yes, I'll leave that be. And I'll click OK. Now, it doesn't look like anything has happened, but now I can select each of these lines and they're separate vectors. Now, you may be wondering why this would even come in handy. What would you want to do this for? Well, let me Control Z to undo that. And let's say, oops, I need to Control Z again. Nope, still, it won't be undone. I can't Control Z out of a gadget. Edit. Yeah. I can't Control Z out of that. I didn't realize this. A gadget made a modification and I can't undo that. So there is a point to be made right there. And that's something that I didn't realize. I'm going to go back and just join them. 4 open vectors. I want 1 closed vector. Boom. Now you may be wondering when something like this would come in handy. Well, let's play around with it a little bit here. I've got this selected. I'm going to do a circular array, and I'm going to put the rotation center at my 0, 0, x0, y0 by double clicking that center point right there. And that puts my rotation center at my x0, y0. And I want, yeah, we'll go with 12 copies on a total angle of 360 degrees. I do not want to group them. We'll click copy. All right. So now I have 12 closed vectors, but I want to do some modification in here. So let me just see what I'm working with. I'll select all of them, tap N to go into node editing, and I've got a bunch of points, and the start points for each one of these is in the center. Okay, I can see that. That looks kind of cool. Tap N to come out of node editing, and now I'm going to explode these vectors. So I'll come up to Gadget, Explode Vectors. I'm going to replace the ones that are currently selected and type OK. And now all of these are separate lines. Now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to come in here and clear out all of this stuff. And I think that's a cool pattern right there in and of itself. But I think I'm going to just go for the outline. Whoops. Control Z, Control Z. There we go. I want to take away those. Take away those. I want to leave the outside lines. And make sure that I'm not removing anything I don't want to remove. And boom. Now, because I have this checked, rejoin the trim sections automatically when the form is closed. Close that, and I have a closed vector. That would be one use when you would go ahead and explode the vectors. Let me double check to make sure that's a closed vector. I'll go over here to join, and it is one closed vector. There are a bunch of different ways. There are a bunch of different times that you would want to use something like this. But that's a very simple demonstration of a time when it would come in handy to explode vectors. So it's real easy. Select the vector you want to explode, come up to Gadgets, Explode Vectors, make your selections. Now, as Dwayne is saying here, one way to save gadget changes is to choose to save to a new layer, then turn off the old one. Absolutely. Absolutely. I had totally forgotten that I couldn't Control Z or edit undo a change made by a gadget. I had totally forgotten that was the case. So use your options here, figure out what you want to do, whether you want to replace the current selected vector or create the vectors on a new layer and go, and we're back again to the separate vectors. So, okay, let me go ahead and come back in here and see what you guys are talking about. Yeah, Exactly. Don't avoid the node editing. You're showing your age, Brooks. You're showing your age. But yeah. Okay, John Thumb is asking, how do I add align objects and modeling tools to my left side? Modeling tools, this is a spire. If you have a spire, you have these modeling tools here. If you have VCarve, you'll have, I think it's, well, let's find out. I'll start a session of VCarve because I don't remember what all tools off the top of my head are. You have 6 modeling tools down here, and it's called 3D model tools because, again, VCarve is not modeling software. You can't create a 3D model in VCarve. Okay. You can create 3D model in Aspire. That's why I have all these modeling tools. Now, as far as your alignment tools, you come up here to under transform objects to alignment tools, come all the way down at the bottom, show common tools on the drawing tab. Put a check mark there and close it, and these align objects tools will be right here. Okay. Now, it can get kind of crowded down here, especially in Aspire when you've got a bunch of stuff down here. But not many people know this, or not many people remember this. Up here, I've got transform objects. You can see that my cursor is a hand. That's because this is a link. These sections are collapsible. You click on them and they will collapse. So if it's too full over here and you're getting confused, you can collapse or open these options. That can kind of help when you're first starting out, but I tend to leave them open. Like I say, not many people know that it'll actually do that. So, but if you've been having issues, that's one way to collapse it all down. So, let's see here. 8 Sinners said, it always amazes me you can recall exactly what functions are available in each version. I mean, you have Aspire, so why even use Desktop Pro or VCarve? Aspire has every function, no? Yes, Aspire has every function that's in VCarve Pro. But and this dovetails into another question that I have here waiting in the queue. I'm a beta tester. And as a beta tester, they want to beta test both Aspire and VCarve. So having VCarve and Aspire available to me helps me to remember what's available in VCarve and what isn't. Or excuse me, what's available in Aspire, what's available in VCarve, and the differences between them, because we test all of them. So, and everything that's in VCarve Desktop is in VCarve Pro Plus, and everything that's in VCarve Pro, everything that's in Cut 2D is in VCarve Pro. So, everything in Cut 2D Desktop is in VCarve Desktop. So, now, let's see, it was Trent Hamilton asked me earlier, how did I become a beta tester? That is simply through the contacts that I have at Vectric. I did a collaboration with Todd where I designed a compass rose and sent it to him. he took that compass rose and put it into a 3D project, and then he carved that 3D project, and it's up on Vectric's website. You go to not Vectric's website, Vectric's YouTube channel. You go to the channel, click on live, scroll down, and you will find the that live stream. I recorded me designing the compass rose, sent it to him, and then he did everything during a live stream. I was also asked to be a presenter in the 2020 worldwide online user group meeting. I did that presentation, and I got to meet a lot of the folks from Vectric through that that online presentation. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email from the beta tester team saying that, I had been recommended as a beta tester, and it just came from out of the blue. It was not something I asked for. I don't know if I'm any good at being a beta tester. I mean, I've reported a few issues I've found, and that's about it. But that's how I became a beta tester. They reached out to me, and I'm proud and happy to do it. So, I mean, it was kind of, all of this is still surreal to me, that they would reach out to me and say, "Hey, you want to do this?" From, like, sure, you bet. So, all right, let's see here. Um, Here's one that's real easy. Jim Brown is asking, can you raise and lower a zero plane? And the answer is yes, you can. And let me get over here. And this is in Aspire, but it works the same way in VCarve. Okay. Man. There is Steve with a link to that Compass Rose live stream right there. Johnny on the spot, like I said, Steven on the spot. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get over here, and I'm going to go into the 3D view, and I've got no 3D content out here at all. But I'm going to come down here, and in VCarve, all you have to do is click on Create Zero Plane. In Aspire, you have to hold down Shift and click it. Otherwise, you're making a flat component. So we'll hold down Shift, and we'll click that, and that adds my zero plane. Okay. Now I'll come over here into the Components tab. I'll click on that zero plane, right-click it, and go to Properties. And the way I can adjust its level is by giving it a negative base height to drop down. A positive base height isn't really going to help you because it's the surface of your material. So I can come here and give it a base height of negative 0.25, let it catch up. And now we see that light gray, kind of a gray cast here. That is the modeling plane. That represents the surface that I'm building the model on. But if I look down here, I can see my zero plane. If you look at my readouts down here, I put my cursor over that surface, you can see it's a 1/4 inch below my surface. Okay, so that's how you can raise and lower a zero plane. Well, that's how you can lower a zero plane. Let's try a positive base height, 0.5, and let it catch up. And there we see my modeling plane is down here, and there is my zero plane. So, yes, you can raise and lower. You do it through the base height. You'll notice shape height is grayed out, and that's because the zero plane has no shape. It's a flat plane with a thickness of 0. Okay, so that's how you do that. Close that, and I'll just delete it because I don't need it. Boom, gone. Come back over to the design tab. All right, there we go. John Thumb, do they pay you millions to be a beta tester? I wish. No, there is no pay involved. What they do is they give you the update that you are beta testing. So right now we're beta testing 12.5. We'll get the free upgrade to 12.5. Of course, that's everybody gets the free upgrade to 12.5. But for instance, from 11.5 to 12.0, I got the upgrade to 12.0 for free because I'm a beta tester. But no, there's no other pay involved. So it is a lot of fun, believe me. It's a lot of fun to have to be beta testing. Our mission is to break it. That's what it is, because they don't know what's going to happen if you hold down 3 buttons that aren't supposed to do anything, and then you do an operation. Is it going to crash the program? They don't know that, so they get as many people with different computers and different systems as they can, and it's a pretty cool group. So I have fun with it. All right, let's see here. Jim, did that answer your question? I hope so. I hope so. Okay, Dwayne Ruthig is asking, is it useful to enter the same bit as an engraving bit and a V bit? It can be. This is especially true if you look at the tip of the V bit. If that doesn't come down to an infinite point, if there's a flat spot at all, that flat tip on that V bit, it should be entered as an engraving bit. And by doing that, if you use that bit in a V carve, it will compensate for that flat tip, or it will try to compensate. It's not going to be able to do it all the way around. Generally speaking, however, there aren't many. Let me go ahead and bring it up here. Go into my tool database. Let me go down here to engraving bits. I only have one one V bit entered as an engraving bit, and that's because it was a little 6mm 15-degree V bit, but it had a flat tip with when I measured it out, 0.0118 is the flat tip on it. So I entered that as an engraving bit, but it's also I've also got it entered as a V bit. So there are times when it does come in handy, but is it essential? No, it's not essential at all. If the bit's doing everything you want it to do, entered as a V bit, then that's all you need. I'm going to be doing some testing on something here pretty quick as soon as I get my machine back up and running 100%. So that may change, but as it sits right now, there can be some benefits. But Dwayne, it's one of those cases where it's going to be project dependent. If it entered as a V bit is doing fine, then it's not worth the hassle. But if it isn't, then maybe it's something to explore. So, okay, let's see here. I hope that answers that, Dwayne. Let's see here. Alan Williamson says, what is the correct height for mounting a router/spindle in relation to the Z mounting point to avoid any problems with it bottoming out? Okay. Excuse me, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. Stop it. Generally speaking, that is a question for the manufacturer. However, I will say this. Um, Something I discovered when I was running my Gatton CNC, that I was using my Porter Cable 890 router in that CNC router. I had to drop that router all the way into the mount. Otherwise, I noticed that when it was doing uh, having it up out of the mount, suspended out of the mount, there, I opened up for flex when using a long bit, and it could flex just almost imperceptibly when making a long horizontal cut or something like that. So I had to drop it all the way down so that it was holding that entire body. Now, the spindle on my Avid bolts onto the Z axis. I can't move it up or down. It bolts in place. They have done the engineering and the R&D, and they have decided where that needs to go. Now, this is a rotten shot. I don't know if you can see or not, but if you can make out, I'm sitting here using my cursor, like you can tell. If you can make out the collet nut right there, you'll notice it's just below the lowest point on my Z-axis. That's where I set that. I have no choice on this. But back when I had the Gatton CNC, it was right about there. Maybe it was down a little bit more, down below the bottom, the lowest point on the Z-axis. But generally speaking, though, that is something that's determined by the machine manufacturer. I would reach out to them if they don't know or they don't have any kind of a preference or anything. I would say to drop it down as low as you can get in that mount. Now, let's see here. So, Mark, if there is no bit in the spindle, what is the distance between your spoil board and the collet when the Z is at its lowest point? That's also machine specific because I have a very thick spoil board. My spoil board is 1.5 inches thick. So I could bottom out that. I could put the collet nut on the spoil board. I don't though. So it is possible, but this is just me talking here. I think you really have to try to do that. And I'll be honest, I'd be cutting through my T-track long before I got to my spoil board. Now that my Z has a 8-inch travel, and it doesn't matter what bit I put in there. My shortest bit is a 1/8 inch down cut. No, my shortest bit is a 3/32 ball nose with an 1/8 inch shank. And when I get it mounted in the collet nut, there's maybe an inch of bit sticking. Man, I don't think it's an inch of bit. Even that will plunge into the spoil board. But you know, what I'm getting at is if you raise that spindle up or that router up, you run the risk of not having enough of that spindle's weight in there, having its mass in that clamp. Now, like in the case of some of the 80 millimeter spindles, they're just a straight cylinder. There is nothing on top like you have on a router where you've got, controls and everything else. It's just a straight cylinder. Everybody that I have seen there have more or less mounted the same way to where that collet nut will attach just below the lowest point of the z-axis. So basically you want it in there pretty good and pretty tight. You don't want it to be able to lever and twist as you're moving it around. So see, I don't understand. If you cannot reach the spoil board, you won't be able to cut to the spoil board. That's what I'm saying. I can reach the spoil board. I can reach the spoil board. I can cut all the way through the spoil board with my 1/2 inch diameter end mill, but I don't. So let's see. It figures to me you want the collet to not bottom out on your own spoil board, leaving maybe a 1/4 inch because nothing will be smaller than that. Well, let's think about that. If you're setting your Z0, it doesn't matter where you're setting your Z0, whether it be the machine bed or the surface of the material. You have the length of the bit sticking out of that collet. You're going to set your Z0 either to the material surface or to the machine bed. It shouldn't go any deeper than, in the case of your machine bed, it shouldn't go any deeper than your machine bed. On the material surface, it shouldn't go any deeper than the way you than whatever you set your cut depth to. Now, if you have a 3/4 inch piece of material and you set your cut depth for 1.5 inches, now we're going to have a problem. But you're going to have a problem no matter where you mount your spindle. What I'm saying is the collet nut should be below the lowest point on your z-axis. And if you're driving it down that deep, you have other problems. It's not where you mounted your spindle. That's what I'm getting at. There are other issues there. Okay. So let's see here. Let me get here. Okay, Rich Bratcher says, I originally mounted my Z-plate on the center set of holes on my Onefinity. Finally had to move it up to clear very thick material. Yes, there is that. And that's why a lot of these are adjustable, so that if you do a lot of thicker materials, you can bring it up. But the thing about it is, you've still got to make sure that that bit is and your material, you have, that's what it, the material, you have to make sure your material is going to go under your z-axis. So Mike Healy says, my machine lets you set a soft Z limit so you can't go through the spoil board. Yeah, there are a lot of people that do use soft limits for that. I generally speaking don't, because I'm not going to plunge my bit down that deep. You know, if by accident I screw up, and I have, the deepest I have ever cut into my spoil board unintentionally was about 1/4 inch. So, yeah, a lot of people ask, why aren't there Z limit switches for the bottom? You can set them up if you want, but if you ever drive that Z-axis down far enough to trigger that limit switch, you have other problems. You have already discovered there's an issue and have probably hit emergency stop, because it's really got to plunge way down and try to, tunnel through your floor before it's going to trigger a limit switch, depending upon where you place the switch, of course. But overall, in general, they're not needed. And that's why most machines don't come with a bottom limit switch for the Z-axis. It's because it's just not needed. So exactly, Al. A switch will never account for the length of the bit in the collet. Exactly. Exactly. Because it doesn't know what you've got in there. It doesn't care what you've got into it. So, Jack Painter's asking, do you think a chunk of countertop could be used as a spoil board? You can use anything you want for a spoil board. The thing is, the spoil board and the tabletop are two different things. I used a MDO board tabletop and then put an MDF spoil board on top of that. The reason I went with MDF is because it's cheap. It is very cheap. It's very easy to get a hold of. It's very easy to replace. And if I screw up and send it too deep, I'm not screwing up an aluminum table. I'm not screwing up Formica or whatever else. So I stick with MDF. The only thing is, I would suggest you have good dust collection and use it. So there are a few people around that have used oak for spoil boards because it's stable enough that they have easy access to it. Yeah, whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. I know folks who never put a spoil board or tabletop on their machine. They have the bare aluminum frame and they'll just clamp or bolt down a piece of plywood and mount a piece of material to that, run that project, and when they're done, take it off. They don't mount a permanent spoil board. Whatever works for you, it's your machine and it's your workflow and you know what you're going to do with it. If you're going to be doing, for instance, if you're doing a combination of wood this week, but you're going to do aluminum next week, that's probably the better way to go, is to put down a piece of plywood or a piece of MDF, clamp it down, mount your piece of wood to that, take everything off, set it aside, throw a different piece of MDF or plywood up there and mount your aluminum piece to that. That way you're not getting aluminum chips all over your nice, pretty spoil board, because believe me, aluminum goes every damn where. And mixing wood with metal, I mean, it can work, but it very rarely does. So, it's 100% up to you how you want to do it. Um, Using an old countertop, sure, why not? I probably would get rid of the Formica, the laminate, if that's what it has. But if it's something like Corian, I'd use that for projects and go with the plywood or MDF spoil board personally, and save that uh, Corian for something else. So Michael Ludwig says in bold letters, sounds like the voice of experience talking here. Don't ever reference your machine with the soft limits bottom on. Um, I can't speak for every machine, but in Mach 3, Mach 4, and CNC 12, your soft limits are not even set until you've homed the machine. Then it sets the soft limits itself. So. Let's see. Thanks, Mark. So call it just below the base, but also check the manufacturer. Check the manufacturer first. And if they don't have any guidance at all, I would set it so that your collet nut is just below the lowest point on your Z axis. Okay. So, see, David is asking, how is your clearance on your fourth axis? How does it affect your material size and other parameters? Obviously, it did affect the width of the material that I can put on there, but I don't do half sheets of plywood or full sheets of plywood. I've got 30, what do I got over here? From edge to edge on the spoil board itself, not counting the T-track, I've got 33.5 inches, and if I overhang it to account for the T-track, I've got 35 inches in width and 49 inches in length. But the beautiful thing about the Avid is I can take that rotary axis off and set it aside, and I've done that. So I still have 49 by 49. So yeah, it did affect the material size that I can cut, but not too much because I don't, generally speaking, I don't use that. On the rotary, it has the same width, it has the same material capacity as if I would have put it crossways parallel to the X and dropped it down into the machine. The main difference in my reason for running it over there was to get it out of the way so I didn't have the chuck and the tailstock sticking up out of the front of the spoil board. I just prefer to stick it over there. And the chuck and motor and everything else sits back far enough to where it's in some of the unused space behind the gantry. So the motor and the planetary gearbox that it runs stays under the gantry. I can take that bit all the way up to about a half inch away from the chuck jaws. And that's about as far back as it'll go before I hit a limit switch. But other than that, I've got the full length. I've got the 48-inch rotary. So now let's see here. Let's see here. John Thumb is asking, how can I tell on the CAD side visually where the project will start? Colored line, blue, red, green. Oh, okay. That's called the origin. Let's jump over here into the 2D view first. And the origin point is going to be your X, Y, 0. Now you can come up here to, I believe it's edit and then options. And let's see here, 3D view setting. There it is. It's in the 3D view setting, draw origin. Come over here where it says no, click this arrow and click yes. Now, you're not going to see anything in the 2D view. But if we come over to the 3D view, there is my origin. Green for Y, red for X, and if I tilt it to the side, blue for Z. Now it's going to be placed wherever you set your XY 0 right here, your XY datum position. So I have mine set to the center, so my origin is going to be right there in the center. Now, if that ends up being in the way or too much of a distraction, you can come back up here to edit, options, 3D view settings, draw origin, click the arrow, change it to no, click OK, and it's gone. Yes, AL, perfect. RGB equals XYZ. Absolutely. The X in red, the Y in green, blue in Z in blue. And if you go into something like SketchUp, you'll see the same thing. X is red, Y is green, Z is blue. So, let's see. John's asking, so the rotary is like a lathe? Kind of. There are ways of setting it to spin like a lathe for like sanding or something like that, but that's not how it's used. Generally speaking, you're cutting 2D or 3D shapes and the axis will rock back and forth as the bit is carving in Z. Now, again, there are workarounds. You can set it up. You can command it to sit there and spin like a lathe at a certain RPM, but that requires a little bit of playing around with post processors and files and things of that nature. So, let's see here. Go to another one here. Hope that answers that, John. And in the 2D view, you're looking down straight at the 2D view as if you were looking at the top of your machine. This direction is always going to be Y. This direction is always going to be X. And when you're drawing in the 2D view, there is no Z because, again, it's 2D, X and Y. It's only when you get into the 3D view that you have Z to concern yourself with. So, all right. Let's see here. The Fuzz says, how come I have to use a pocket allowance when running a finishing pass using a lower step over with a bowl bit? Um, I don't know that you do need to use a pocket allowance. Using a lower step over with a bowl bit. Generally speaking, see, I've never had to do that. Hmm. Okay, I see what you're getting at. It might be to make sure that the bit doesn't overshoot. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I've never had to, but that doesn't mean I won't have to. It cuts wider if I don't use a pocket allowance. Yeah, that's what I mean. To keep it from overshooting that vector boundary. That may be the reason why you have to use that pocket allowance. That might be a question for Vectric. I would shoot them their Vectric support an email and ask them. I will ask them myself, but that's a good question. I just wrote myself a note, and I'll shoot a message to them. But shoot a message to them on your own. Um, okay, Martin Pearson says that is to do with the radius of the bit. It's been asked on the forum. Okay. Um, I'd like that answer. I'd like to get an answer myself on that, Martin. I can see where that would be a concern, and I could see how that could affect it. But I too want to know why. So, good question. Excellent question. Keep questions like that coming. So basically, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I'll try to get one for you. Okay, John Thumb again says, can you explain the difference between 3D engrave and 3D modeling? I think you mean 3D carving. Okay. Michael Mazalik says it's because the roughing toolpath uses the center of the bit, thereby overcutting. Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So basically, when you create a pocket, thank you, Michael. That makes oh, I didn't do that. Let me go back over here and join all these up. I forgot I did that. Let's join. All right, we got one closed vector now. Okay, we're going to use, I don't have that tiny of a bowl bit. No, we're not going to use that. I'm going to add a new layer. Boom. and call it layer 2. I'll make that active, turn off layer 1. Let's make a bowl with a 10-inch diameter on my X and Y 0. And we'll close that, zip over here, and I'll pocket that out. That's fine. That's enough of a dish. Remove that core box bit. And I'm going to select my 1¼ bowl and tray bit. Select. And I'm going to use my, my 1/2 inch end mill to hog it out. Boom. All right. All right, so that's going to be my roughing tool path, and that's going to be my finish tool path. I'm going to use a pocket allowance of 0. And we'll calculate. Now, I'm going to shut off each one of these. I'm going to go ahead and select my pocket clearance. And over here, I've got, in my 2D view, I've got toggle the toolpath 2D drawing style rather. Select that, put a check mark. That's what my bit's going to hog out. Select this one. That's what that bowl bit's going to hog out. Now, if I'm not going to use this clearance bit, let's remove that. I'm just going to use that bowl and tray bit and use offset, calculate. And again, go back over to the 2D view, and I'm using the solid view. Yeah, that still didn't go outside of that. It still didn't go outside of those vectors. So basically, I'm not sure what it's doing. I've never had that happen. But I will get an answer. And Michael, thank you. That does make sense. When it's roughing, it measures by the center of that bit. Tool database. Let's go back in and take a look at that bowl and tray bit. It's going by the center of the bit, not the outside edge of the bit. That makes sense. Okay, use a separate pocket tool path for the finish cut. There's your answer. There's your answer. There's your answer. Okay. Close that. Boom. Will this help with the mystery ridge on my deep egg carve? Probably not. Probably not. Al, that's why I'm going to get an answer from Vectric. That's why I'm going to get an answer from Vectric to find out. Let's see here. Alan Williamson is asking, is your chopping board project completed? That's an ongoing thing. Let me change cameras. Shaboom. That should point at it. Well, it will in a minute. This right here is 5 coats of 100% pure tung oil, and you can see it's still kind of leaching out a little bit. I think I'm done applying the the tongue oil, but I'm not certain. I may go 6 coats. The short answer to the long question is it's not quite done. It'll need to go in the house and sit, acclimate, and leach out more there. But if it has more to leach out, but as it sits right now, uh, no, it's not done. But I'm not going to be cooking any briskets until this spring or summer anyway. So I don't need it. I don't need it just yet. So let's see. What does that mean? Okay, the 100% tongue oil is it's an oil from tongue nuts, and sounds so wrong. TUNG. It's a Asian tree, and the oil will solidify and form a film, but it takes a long time. It's an oil. Oils evaporate very, very slowly. So you apply it and it remains liquid until that solidification happens. And that could be anywhere from a week to a couple of months. So as the temperatures go up and down, things will expand and contract. And with that being end grain, Ayal, it's like straws. Gravity's going to force it down. And that's why I've been working on that since before Christmas. Give it a while, apply another coat. Give it a while, apply another coat. However, there is still a little bit of liquid oil in there gravity's just going to pull it down. So I have to wipe it off. And occasionally, as things warm up, it'll expand and a little oil will appear on the surface, and I have to rub that down, wipe it off. That's what I mean by leaching out. So, let's see. That's art, not a cutting board. That's what my wife said. But this is the second one of these boards I made. I made one for her, and um, she refuses to let me anywhere near it with a knife. She can be dead asleep. If I pick up that cutting board and get out my chef's knife, I've got a fight on my hands. She'd be right there. Where do you think you're going with that cutting board? So I said, all right, I need a cutting board to use. So I made that one. And that's going to be that's my cutting board to use. I've already used it a couple times. So too late. I've already used it a couple of times for Christmas, cutting up bread and stuff like that. My daughter, you're not going to cut into that. Yes, I am. It's what it's for. So, um, let's see. In simple terms, food grade versus chemical additives that accelerate oxidization, right? Um, yeah, to a point. That's an excellent point. Thanks for bringing that up. 100% pure tongue oil is food safe. It is food grade. This is the brand I use. Hope's 100% pure tongue oil. Tongue oil finishes. Don't use them. Don't use them if it's food grade. They have some of them have other varnishes, thinners, and other chemicals. They are not food safe. And this is the solvent that I used, citrus solvent. That's what I used to thin it. I thinned the first coat, and then I did not thin after that. And as it sits right now, that you just saw was 5 coats. Wow. And the final finish will be Howard's Butcher Block conditioner. That'll be the final finish. And I think that'll go on probably this summer. Um, I have used mineral oil and beeswax in the past, and I'm just not a fan. Just not a fan. Let's see here. Gary Meyer says, I have always used heat treated walnut oil for my food grade work. And that's a valid alternative. My only issue, and I have nothing to base this on, Gary, my only issue is I don't know if that would trigger a nut allergy. And I have to be careful with my grandkids and what have you. So I just went for something that, I know there are no problems with. Now, again, tongue nut, walnut, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't know. The other reason I use tongue oil is the aesthetic. I just like how it looks. I mean, this camera doesn't do it justice. I mean, that it just glows. So I have used Odie's oil and it has its place. My only problem with Odie's oil is when you first apply it, it looks gorgeous. I really thought I had found the panacea when I first tried out Odie's oil on some breadboards I made for a couple of Christmases ago. But it only took about a month and a half, and that glow just went away and it became dull and kind of lifeless, whether I used it or not. So the wax does work. It does help. But okay, Gary says the heat treatment takes the allergy causing proteins out of the oil. Okay. It's called Juglone, Juglone, and it's wicked stuff. It's wicked stuff. Look it up. It's Jug Juglone. It'll kill other plants. It's wicked stuff. But K8 Center says I keep linseed because I have it for axe shafts and for tool handles. That's what I would use as well. Was linseed oil. Another one is, and this is my favorite finish for guitar necks, is True Oil rifle stock oil, but it's not food safe. It is not food safe, and it's a bit more labor intensive. I'll go up to 5 coats of True Oil on a guitar neck, and it's ding dong near bulletproof. It's gorgeous, has that nice warm glow, and very, very nice. Love it. But Odie's oil, I have nothing against it, other than it's a little bit higher maintenance than they would have you believe, in that it needs, periodic waxing and buffing to bring back that shine, that glow. It's a satin finish, but you still have that glow. Very easy to apply, not cheap, very easy to apply, and it smells nice while you're using it too. So, okay. Didn't get into this. Can you explain? John Thumb wants to know, can you explain the difference between 3D engraving and 3D modeling? John, did you mean 3D 3D carving versus 3D modeling? Because the difference is, I'll say simple, not easy, but simple. Looking at VCarve Pro here, all right. I can go into my clip art and I can get into animals and we'll put a stallion out there in the middle of it. Okay. Go back into my design tab here. Let's enlarge it here. Look at it in my 3D view. Looks pretty decent. I like that. Okay. We're gonna go to, okay, show you how to do this from the start. Click it once. We've selected the model. Right down here, we have three different options here. Okay. We have an overall shape height. We have a shape height. Then we have a base height. Shape height is the height of the model itself from the modeling plane. The base height right now is 0, meaning I don't have a base underneath where this model starts. Okay. I can add one, but I don't want one. This is the overall shape height. Shape height plus base height is the overall model height, the thickness of it. Okay. We're looking at 0.7398. That's okay. It'll fit in my 3/4 inch material. Go back to a straight top view. I can carve this model in VCarve Pro. I can't, however, create my own model. This is a 3D component. We go over here into the Components tab. I can add more components. I could put this down in a dish. I can put it on top of a dome. I can add other things on top of this model. I can put things in the background. I can put trees in the background and things like that. I can bring more components in, but I can't create my own components. I can't bring in the vectors of a horse and create these shapes in VCarve Pro or VCarve Desktop. Back over to the Design tab real quick. In Aspire, I can create those shapes. And we'll go in, we'll turn on layer 1, make it active, shut off layer 2, and we'll select that shape and come down here into my modeling tools, and let's create a rounded shape using this vector. I'm gonna set a profile of, let's make it 22.5 degrees. I'm going to preserve the internal corners so they're not rounded. Let me look at my 3D view, and I've just created that model. This cannot be done in VCarve. I'm not going to fade it or tilt it, but I'm going to bring my height up to 0.7, make it 0.7 inches thick. And we've got the right, I want it to add. All right, apply, and we'll close that. So I've made that 3D component. I can't do this in VCarve. That's the difference. I hope that answers that. So let me go back up here a minute real quick. Kimberly's asking, can you use tung oil over cured epoxy on maple, or will it discolor? Okay. 8th Center is saying all oils will darken like epoxy, but I think epoxy does darken over and over, whereas oil can up to a point. I have used a number of things over epoxy. Generally speaking, the dirty little secret that most people don't know, or that most people don't pay attention to, is that about 99.999% of the epoxies that we're using in these projects are urethane based. So you can put a polyurethane base, a polyurethane finish over epoxy. Lacquer doesn't work out so good. It can, but beyond the point. I've never used an oil over epoxy. I know I'm going to have to triple check on this, but I think Shane Peters uses Odie's oil over his epoxy, but I could be wrong. I know that's what he finishes the board with, but he polishes the epoxy. I mean, getting down to, he sands down to like 8,000 and then busts out the polishing equipment using wheels and polishing compounds made for cars. He really goes all in. He masks off all of the wood and then polishes and then takes that off. And then he applies Odio's oil to the whole thing. Tongue oil, I don't know. All I would say, Kim, is to try it on some scrap. I mean, find you a piece of scrap wood, an old fence board or what have you, put you an epoxy disc in it, and sand everything nice and smooth, and then apply some tongue oil over it. I don't know what it'll do. I really don't. So, 8 Center says my epoxy goes to 10K and then compounds. It's a lengthy process. Yes, it is. It is very much a lengthy process. But then again, if you talk to Shane about a cutting board, you're into the high 3 and possibly 4 digits. It doesn't come cheap because it is so labor intensive. So, let's see here. Okay, I think we've caught up on all of the questions. Kimberly, I don't know if you caught the explanation at the beginning of the episode on exploding vectors when we were talking last week on the Wednesday live stream on somebody else's channel, on Garrett's channel, Garrett's live stream. I couldn't remember which one. I do so many live streams, it's not even funny. But I did explore that at the very beginning of this episode. Now, I was talking about this EX conversion. We've got a few more minutes. Let me jump back over here. It is a whole new control box. It is a whole new control system. It is a whole new software, everything. This is a tool length setter right here. It is a second touch plate, basically. And this is what we're getting calibrated in. Mine right now sits too low. I need to bring it up. And that's because I have a thick spoil board on this. As soon as I get that set up and calibrated, I'm set and ready to go. I'll be starting on some projects. The EX controller system is completely different from anything I have ever used before. So it's going to take me a while to get used to it. But I have a few projects in mind that I'm going to do for videos. And we'll start on them hopefully next week. I don't know what my first video is going to be, but I'll figure it out sometime between now and then. I've got a lot of things that I want to do, and I need to get caught up on them. One of those things will be photo V carving. That has been on the back burner for close to 10 years now. I'm going to be getting into photo V carving, but not in the way that some people would think. Anyhow, channel members, tomorrow we are doing Michael Bernasconi is coming back. We're going to explore a little bit further on the laser side of images created in AI, and we're going to get into 3D modeling those images from AI. He walked through the processing last week. This week, we'll be getting into some specifics. So that's tomorrow, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Channel members, remember to hit that community tab. That's where you'll find the link to the members only live streams. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you would like more information on becoming a channel member, click that little join button down below this video panel somewhere. They move it around. It might be over here, it might be over there. Click that little join button. Another panel will pop up and a video will play, tell you all about channel membership. Everybody else, I'm not sure what's going to be next week. Hopefully it'll be something good. Let's see here. Inlays would be good. Inlays, hopefully. Inlays is coming soon. That's one of the things I'm going to be doing. As soon as I get this up, inlays will be coming soon. I have a project that needs inlays. The person the project for just doesn't know the inlays are coming. Or stupid o'clock UK time. Well, you know, what can I say, Martin? You know, pull up a coffee and curl up on the couch and join us. All righty. I'm going to go ahead and let that go. Let it go for now. I will get that link that Steve posted to the Compass Rose video that Todd and I collaborated on, and post it down in the description. I will also ask Vectric about this pocket allowance and try to get something nailed down. All right. So, all y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. And flipping through the Rolodex in my brain. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Have a great rest of your day. Y'all take care.